morning. It is morning huddle time.
A sense of belonging in a company actually increases job performance by 56%.
It's like a lot of times all of that 3D data is there. They've done the work. They've done the engineering. They've done the slopes. They've done all the 3D polylines are already in their file. There's just a huge disconnect between what they do and the builders right now.
113,000 available unfilled construction jobs in this country, 11 million available unfilled jobs overall in this country.
One of the great culture things I see in construction is people just get it done. At the end of the day, we've built 100% of the building. There's no 80-20 rule.
Think of the technology that has been brought into existence in the last 60 years, and you think of the productivity gains that have, say, occurred in agriculture, which is up 1,750%, or manufacturing, which is up 400%, and construction is flat to negative.
This was always supposed to just be a 6-episode mini-series, Stacy. I want to remind you of that.
Good morning. It's morning huddle time. Chad Prinky here, as always, along with my good friend, producer, co-host extraordinaire, Stacy. Stacy, how you doing this morning?
Good. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
It's back to school week, so it's pretty stressful. It was my son's second, or I guess third day, because they had a staggered start last week, and he did not want to go back. So, and then you have my dog crying for him in the background.
What grade? What grade for your son?
He's in kindergarten, so it's a big change.
This is the big one, yeah. Starts to be school.
Yeah. How about your kids? God. Did they have a good start?
Yeah, so far so good. Yesterday was my oldest first day in 6th grade, and he was, terrified, and he was like, "I'm so scared." I was like, "You should be, man. It's terrifying. I don't know what to tell you."
That is a tough age.
Yeah, 6th grade can be a lot, but yeah. So his first day, so far so good. Though he did come home and was like, "Listen, Dad, kids are swearing. I'm not real comfortable with it." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to roll with that. I don't know what to tell you."
Get corrupted this year.
Yeah, it's what happens. All the kids are terrible. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have exposed much more bad language. Yeah. Anyway, cool. So I've got we've got Dave Rosenbluth joining us. Dave, I'm going to pop Dave up here on the screen. Dave, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Great to be here. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. It's good to have you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks.
Pleasure. Middle school is a nightmare, by the way. As somebody who lived through it already, my children are all adults. I really didn't like my sons when they were in middle school. It was obnoxious, to say the least. So
there's just a lot of trying. There's a lot of trying to be cool in middle school, right? There's a lot of trying, and you're just constantly changing hats. Like, should I be a jerk today, or should I be like a jock, or should I be how should I play it?
Right.
Today there's lots of fitting in and all that kind of stuff that goes on. I grew up. I went to 9 schools. In different areas. I wasn't just getting kicked out of schools. We were moving. But I went to 9 schools from the time I was in 5th grade to the time I graduated high school. And I swear every time I moved somewhere new, I was like, all right, what are we going to do here? Maybe here we'll try on this persona, whatever it took to fit in. And there's a reason I think my mother and I basically didn't talk my entire time from being 14 to 17. Those were tough years for her.
Yeah, it's a trying time.
It is. Well, I'm hoping for the best out here. He got on the bus this morning and seemed to want to, so that was a good look.
Yeah.
So Dave is the national sales manager with Market Share Brands Utility ProWear. And Dave is joining us to talk to us today about PPE Designed for Women. And it's stuff that Dave has been working on for years. And it's a different take on some of the conversations that we've had on this in the past, where we've had women who have designed these clothes, who have, people like, Stacy, help me out. Emily Solaby, is that right?
Yep. Juno Jones. Yep.
Right. You know her. Okay.
I know her well.
Yeah. Awesome. And others, and Morgan Dawson, I want to say, Gosh, and I'm trying to remember. There was one other woman who was on and talking about it, and it was a help me out. Please come
Oh,
back.
Catherine, but yeah, she doesn't have a woman's necessarily PPE line, but she supports women and has her own podcast. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Catherine. And what was her last name again?
Oh, don't make me pronounce it.
Sorry, Catherine, the awesome person with a cool podcast. Go back
Catherine's
to episode like 40 something. She's back. Anyway, but we had some women on talking about designing it, and today we're going to be talking about Dave, kind of where you fit into the value chain, if you will, in that space, and maybe tell a little bit about your background and how you got into doing this, what all you do, and where women's PPE fits in. And I think the conversation I'm most interested in having with you is kind of like the state of women's workwear in the industry, and what the industry needs to be doing now to move that ball forward. So, as always, Stacy, we'll have you engage with the LinkedIn audience and pop you back on with about 10 minutes to go.
All right.
All right. So, Dave, start off by talking a little bit about give us your background. Your story.
I've been with Market Share Brands, which is a umbrella company that creates several brands. Two of them are more in the consumer area, high-end women's raincoats, and another is little girls' dresses. And the third is the workwear division, which is Utility Pro, which concentrated mostly on high visibility ANSI apparel. And that's been a going concern for close to 20 years. I've been with the company for about 13 now. And originally, like many, we were a male-only apparel maker in the high visibility space. And at a trade show, probably about 10 years ago now, women from Harley Davidson, from one of their manufacturing facilities, came up to us and said to us that we needed to make female, designed for their bodies PPE, because they explained that on the production line, they're wearing a male, let's say a vest, and these bikes come by. Obviously, there's things sticking out. There's assistive technology and robotics moving around, and their ill-fitting clothing presented a hazard because it was getting caught up in the equipment and the bikes as they came by. A woman described it to me and basically said, I might as well be in the dark wearing black because that's how unsafe I feel.
Wow.
So that's what piqued our interest. The idea that there are women already out there, and of course, think about it, 10 years ago, so that's an even smaller population, but there are women in predominantly male-dominated fields, and they're unprotected, and they're not working right. They're not protected properly. So we started to dig in, and we developed a line that has since grown. At the time, I think we had 4 pieces. We had a vest and 3 different outerwear pieces to go with it. And now we're up to 9 with a couple more coming. And basically, we did the research and talked to people about how to design it. There's narrower shoulders, but there's issues at the hip, and just torso length is different. So as you've probably had conversations with other people that design women's PPE, they pointed out some of these differences. So like when you see pictures on LinkedIn of women at a job site, you can tell the women that are wearing male pieces and the women that are wearing designed for female, especially in length and also in, I'll call it girth. The idea, they're too baggy, if it's a male piece. Yeah. So that's what's got us started. And of course, in the ensuing years, with the way things are in construction, especially, and the amount of women that are moving into those fields to fill some of the job gaps, that population is starting to grow. It represents in the trades, I think it's about 13% of the total work population now is female.
Yep.
And here's a stat to think about, and I'm sure you might have discussed it, but over 70% of the people currently working in the trades are 45 or older. Okay, that's a whole lot of people that, just from a pure physical standpoint, might not be around 10 years from now doing the jobs. Okay. Someone's got to fill all those slots. And a lot of women are jumping in already, whether it's in the trades or it's in, site supervision or safety supervision, things like that. So that it's a slowly emerging field, and with their own unique set of needs.
Yeah, and we've agreed, and we've certainly spent a lot of time on the morning huddle talking with people who are helping to spread the word and get more women engaged in the construction industry. And it's I would say, really strong movement at this point. I would anticipate 10 years from now that 13% could be, well into the 20s, if not more.
Agreed.
Over the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to increase. And it's only reasonable that that the manufacturers of safety wear and workwear should be thinking about this emerging and consistently growing portion of the workforce. But here we are, and one of the things that jumped out to me in our conversation leading up to this, Dave, was that you had said, if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, it would be different than the conversation that we're having today. And I thought that was a really interesting, it was kind of a cliffhanger for me. I want to understand that further. So you tell me, like, where are we today? What's the landscape of women's PPE today in comparison to 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
So 5 years ago, it would have been, where's the product? Why isn't somebody making the product?
And people like the folks that we've named and your company and others have stepped up to say, here's some product.
Exactly.
And design product.
Right. So now there is product. There are, boots, glasses, hard hats, and all kinds of clothing. Okay. Specialty clothing, FR, non-FR, high vis, plain old workwear, et cetera. It's not a question anymore, I think, of that. A lot of entrepreneurs have gotten in and done that. The issue now is the supply chain, and the issue is putting the companies, construction company XYZ, knowing that they can get the products from Utility Pro or from Dawson or whoever the company is, because we're in a situation in the safety world that we're dominated by really large multinational distribution companies. And many of those companies look at things, they have a formula as to when they decide they're going to carry items. When I mean carry, I mean stock.
Yeah.
They're not going to have a problem stocking some male bomber jacket because they know that of the 13 million people in the trades, 10 million of them are men. Okay. Or more. But they're not necessarily stocking female designed clothing and PPE. And so construction company Acme, the buyer, goes to big distributor X and says, okay, I got to get those bomber jackets. I need 75 bomber jackets, and I need my eyeglasses, and I need this, that, and the other. He puts together himself a nice order, and he gets it all at a special discount from distributor X. But distributor X isn't carrying the female clothing and PPE. So what does the company XYZ do? They buy male smalls or extra smalls.
Right. They do what they've been doing for the past 50 years.
Exactly.
And they don't actually, here's all this wonderful custom product that's been designed for these workers that we're not getting into the companies who are placing the orders, because as they place the orders, these things they're not readily available.
Exactly. So what a lot of us are frustrated by all that, obviously, and I get some of the thinking behind some of these international distributors. I'll just leave it at that. They have to make decisions on stocking all the time, and they got to it's a huge dollar investment for them overall with the amount of things they do stock. And they look at that number and say, it's just not worthy right now, at this point in time.
Well, here's the thing. It seems to me like the real pain in the ass about this whole thing is that, or what makes it so difficult to make the change is that at the end of the day, they're ordering PPE for women. They're just ordering men's PPE for women.
Right.
And so they're not losing sales.
Right.
At the end of the day, they're still making business. They're still making sales. So they're kind of shrugging their shoulders thinking, screw it. It's working for us. And I realize that there's probably better product out there for these people, but it's not like they're not buying it. And and so at the end of the day, how the only way, I think there's only two ways, right? There are three ways. Let's go with three. There's only three ways to actually influence change. One is to get the long arm of the government involved. Let's mutually agree. Let's try to avoid that one. Let's try that one, right? Two is that we let the market just kind of sort itself out naturally. And in this case, I think I just pointed at the reason that's not going to happen. The market isn't going to just sort itself out naturally. So number three is you gotta go around and stomp, and you gotta say we're pissed off, and you have to fix this. Yeah. Even though we're ordering men's smalls, that's not what we should be doing, and we need to stop that now. And you gotta. Maybe not you. I'm not calling on you, Dave, to publicly shame these multinational corporations that happen to also be your customers, right? But people need to. I think that's an important aspect of this, is that people need to be banging on the doors of the companies of this ilk and saying, just because we are buying your men's smalls for our women doesn't mean we should be.
That's true. And you have an issue here. Also, think of the individual woman who is a tradesperson working on a job site. She might be two women in a crew of 50 from any particular company. The last thing that woman wants to do is to make herself stand out more than she already does in terms of the job politics, a woman in a male world. They don't want to be considered that, and pardon my language, that bitch on the job.
Right.
All those things.
Yeah, so they don't want to carry the unfair connotations that come with just like, standing up for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So all that plays into it too. So you don't have many of the women going as individuals to their buyer and saying, hey, I need these boots here, and I need this vest here, and these gloves. That's what works for me. Now, about the only thing that I will say where government may help us is the recent OSHA statement that came out regarding the support of the equity piece, the idea that people, from a pure safety point of view, fit means a lot. Now, how that will translate into a regulation, I don't really know. And as we all know, for the most part, OSHA and ANSI is a voluntary exercise. And so we all know that there are times and places and people and companies that will not exactly follow those voluntary suggestions. So it remains to be seen.
Sometimes you can press, yeah.
Right. But I think that you talk about raising the awareness, getting angry. There's a lot of organizations out there now in support of women, whether it's Association of Women in Construction, Women in the Trades, roofing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been calling for the idea that on some level, all these organizations have very similar goals, advocating for women in their respective fields, but they're all running down parallel train tracks that are not meeting at a crossroads where common goals can be brought together between all the organizations. And then you have more muscle because you got power in numbers. Any one of the groups might be considered to some small or inconsequential, but when you put all these women's advocacy groups together, it's a serious number. Yeah. And I think there's commonality there between them all that could help push this thing forward and get a better acceptance out there in the world.
Yeah, I love it. And I may have tilted my hand a little bit and I the audience may have gotten their first peek at my political positioning in my previous statement, but I would, in that I'm just, how about this? I'm just pro free market combined with people advocating and pushing things forward. I would love if we could move this forward without creating a law.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? I just think that's I think it's a healthier thing for our economy overall. But I'm also in agreement that when the markets fail to act, that is the reason we have government. So
yeah,
we can't have a large portion of the population unsafe because corporations are unwilling to make a decision that they think isn't in their best financial interest. We can't have large portions of people unsafe as a result. So I understand that position as well, and I hope that the market is listening to these advocates, the women's associations, things like that. But I also think it's what we're doing right now is got to be a piece of the puzzle too, because quite frankly, my bet is that the purchasing people and that unless the customers of these large distribution companies, unless the customers start banging the table and saying this is BS, you need to provide us with these options or we are switching providers,
right.
and really start hitting them in the wallet, when they can start doing the math and say, well, it was fine when we were still selling the men's smalls to these people. We didn't care because they kept on buying, but now they're threatening to pull the business altogether. We don't want to lose this $1,000, $100,000, whatever, $2 million account because they're unhappy with our options. We'd better listen to our customers and react. So, folks, if you're one of those people and you're watching this or listening to this right now, take the lead. And I think there's an opportunity from a capitalizing on the market from what you're hearing from Dave right now. Why doesn't one of these companies jump on the idea that we're actually going to brand on that? We're going to capture market share with it, because there's an opportunity to do that right now. And that consultation costs no money.
And I think you're right. And I think one of the reasons I would point to that is, one, the misnomer that had been out there was that a lot of the female PPE was more expensive than male. In our case, that's not true. And I know in several other cases it's not. So it's not going to cost anybody any more than it would for a male piece. And, the other part of that is this whole idea that I do know this, having been to several events, we'll call them PPE fashion shows. They've become kind of a popular thing at trade shows, and especially for women and the different things that are available. And what happens is women who, and I think we can all relate to this, when you find something that fits and you like, I don't know about you, but I buy 4 of them.
Yeah, right.
I 4 different colors, but I buy them because I don't want to have to search for something. Well, women in PPE are the same way. They're incredibly loyal to the brands they find that work. And the multinational distributor can take advantage of that by having those brands available to them and capture that audience. And you're first in and you're last out. Okay. That loyalty, that brand loyalty stays, and that loyalty to that big distributor will stay.
Yep.
So I think there's, several factors at play that could work for people who decide that it's good business to do this.
You just took words out of my mouth. It's good business. What I'm hearing is there are some compelling business reasons to do this, and you can choose to keep the status quo right now, and you probably won't feel it in your wallet for a while. But if one of your competitors shifts, you'll start to feel it.
Exactly.
Because I do think that here's what I believe is that the majority of companies in the construction industry are trying to be good places to work. They want to be good places to work for their employees, and they are becoming more and more cognizant of the need to be more inclusive with things like, simple as this, like PPE. Why would that be an area to not be inclusive and provide equity, equitable opportunities. So
No,
go ahead, please.
As an example, not to toot our own horn, but on our own website, we have our own brand ambassadors, and they're just regular, everyday folks in the field. These aren't like, TikTok stars or anything like that. These are just regular tradespeople or safety officers who we depict in their everyday lives at work in our apparel and other safety goods as part of what they do for work. And we do that with some companies as well. So that's the key right there. It's to humanize this thing, personalize this thing, and bring it to a level where people say this isn't as hard as it's been made out to be.
Yeah, I agree. Love it. I'm going to bring Stacy back. Stacy, I'm sure you've been listening and listening to two dudes talk about women's PPE.
Gotta bring me back.
Stacy, I did not think about the optics of that. I'm sorry in advance.
Right.
That was embarrassing. No, not in advance. I'm sorry afterwards. It's embarrassing. There's nothing I can do about that now. Stacy, what kind of questions do we have for?
Well, I have a couple comments as I'm hearing you talking. First of all, I love that you started out with the Harley Davidson story. I don't know if you've been to their manufacturing facility, but I got to tour it. It's out in New York, PA, and highly recommend that tour. It's amazing, the things that they're doing. So the other thing you noted on was the rise of women in construction, and we're up to 13%. And I think a big part of that is NAWIC's push on social media. They ran their first huge national social campaign, and they were showing off all the women's workwear and all different topics. So I think that really helped. And a lot of people in this industry are so slow still to get on board with social media. And I think it's more of a generational thing. There's older owners owning these businesses, and they don't have time to be on social, but they're truly missing out on the conversations that we're having. What else was I going to say? Oh, so back to the social media, you were kind of talking about brand ambassadors. So I was curious, especially on Instagram, we find a huge following of skilled trades professionals that, whether it's electricians, plumbers, carpenters, you name it, they kind of have they're influencers, I guess, of skilled trades, and people are following them, and they have large audiences. So is women's workwear, not just even women's, are you guys taking advantage of those influencers and brand ambassadors, and how does that all work?
Well, for us, we wanted it to be very organic. So in other words, like I said before, I wasn't looking for somebody who was going to say, "Oh, I'll wear your brand, but it's going to cost you thousands." Okay. Mm-hmm. I was looking for people who have already organically built these wonderful followings because they're inventive with their videos, and they have a passion about their work, and about, especially in the case of women in those formerly male-dominated jobs. So what it's done for us from a commerce point of view is it has directed more people to our retail website for sure. Mm-hmm. It has raised up the level of awareness of us as a brand, partly because we don't do a lot of what you would call traditional advertising, whether it's in trade papers or on trade websites. We do some trade shows, and we rely on manufacturers' reps in their respective territories. But the brand ambassadors have a way of legitimizing everything, because another woman who may be getting started sees one of our ambassadors, an electrical apprentice or a safety officer, somebody like that, a certified safety professional, and say, "Hey, I've been interested in that. Let me go find out how to do this." And so it has had an effect. I have spoken to people at trade shows, and they say, "Oh, I remember seeing so-and-so in that video with that jacket. Can I see that jacket?" That kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
there is a direct cause and effect to using real life folks in real life situations on Instagram, especially. Nope.
Yeah, I was at the NAWIC women's or children's girls camp, and one of the volunteers I was working with, she had these amazing like safety glasses on. They were called Vipers, and she was telling me all about the brand and how excited she was. And she wasn't a brand ambassador; she was just a huge fan. And I looked them up; they're pretty badass.
Yeah.
I really like those, and the whole marketing campaign around it is really, really cool. Is there some brands that you can specifically recommend for us women to go check out, especially if we are wearing men's clothing right now and we want to see what our options are?
Sure. If you need high vis, you go to Utility Pro Wear. That's an easy one for me to say. UtilityProWear.com. And right now, in fact, if you use the word huddle for the code, you get 20% off anything on the site. Other brands in the boot area, there's Xena Workwear and Juno Jones. You guys know Emily. In pants, there's Dawson Workwear. There's Dovetail. Let's see what else there is. They also do some shirts and things like that. FR, there's Sentinel Safety. There's MHER. Melanie Adams does a great job with FR. There's Scoggles, which are design glasses for the female face, safety glasses. There are, and I will say about all of those I mentioned, those are single owner-owned passion projects. Each one of those companies has started and built, which to me is more attractive than something that's corporatized. As much as as much as we need as many people as possible making and putting these products out there, to me it's more appealing that it's passion projects. And those are just some of them. There's others I'm forgetting, and I apologize to those of you who I know, but I've omitted you or forgotten a name here or there. But there are more than enough now out there. The trick is getting them through the channels so that folks can see them more readily.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing that. So, you talked about the discount code. It's 20% off if you mention the huddle. Is there an expiration date on that?
I think we have it through, it's at least 60 days, probably a little more.
Okay.
So they've got some time. So if they want to wait, until it gets a little cooler and they get their eyes on a jacket, they've got a little bit of time for that. But you never know with the weather. So
yeah,
where I am around here, it's supposed to hit 90 over the Labor Day weekend. So.
And where are you at?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's, September, it always gets warm. But anyway, so it's available for folks. And I'm always available to answer any questions as well if anybody has them. So I'd be happy to help in any way, shape, or form.
Thanks. We appreciate that.
Thank
Chad,
you so
any
much.
list?
No, that's awesome. That's Dave. Again, Dave Rosenbluth from Utility Pro Wear, utilityprowear.com, discount code HUDDLE. Definitely go and check that stuff out. It's really nice looking product, and we appreciate the conversation today, Dave. Dave, I think I'm coming away from this planning to advise my clients to start complaining to their to their large multinational distribution companies that they're buying all this stuff from today, and telling them, listen, you really got to get women's product as a part of what you have. That's one small impact that I can make, is start to spread that word. It's not a hard thing for anybody to do.
That's
and
right.
And I'm confident that everybody that I work with is of that mind. So
that's great. And that's how it starts, and that's how it'll grow.
Exactly.
All right. Great, Dave. Thanks again. Have a great day, Stacy. You and I have some cleanup to do.
Yep.
Great to talk with you both. Thanks.
Yeah,
bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So Stacy, we have a pretty big announcement to make that coming up starting in September. We've got some ongoing sponsors. It's been one of the more interesting experiences of my life going and talking to people and sort of saying like, hey, we both want the same thing, which is to spread the word. But for us to do that, the huddle needs to generate some revenue so we can advertise. And so for the first time ever, we're actually going to be advertising and trying to spread the word beyond just like, putting on a good show and hopefully, sending out invites and, and hopefully people show. So
we're stretched a little thin, just us two. So
yeah, no kidding. No kidding. But and as we recently identified, you and I actually have other jobs, which is which is a lot. I would like to call out that we've got Frisco Woodline, previously GE Frisco, awesome people who have a lumber supply company and some custom capabilities in house in terms of fabricating. I'll let them get into it more, but Frisco Woodline is going to be a sponsor. As is Lawrence Law. Kate Lawrence and her team of construction attorneys are sponsors, and Katz Abosch, accounting firm, top accounting firm in the construction space in the Mid Atlantic. We're very happy to have Katz Abosch also as a sponsor. There are two other pending sponsors that I sincerely hope we have set up in time for a September launch, but we'll weave them in when they're ready. But that's one important announcement. Stacy, anything to add on that?
Next week we have Oscar joining us, returning guest, to talk about his Need to Say app updates, because AI has changed, as we recently discussed in the last episode. So he'll keep us up to date with better translation between, English to Spanish, or just better communication overall on the job site using his app, and how AI helps with that and safety and all that.
Yeah, cool. The Latin American workforce, that entire, I feel like Oscar's got a pretty good finger on the pulse of that world, and is done some progressive things to create a safer environment for a population that I think we all care a lot about. So that'll be an exciting conversation, and I think. Other than that, just kind of the normal reminder to please email us to be added to our weekly mailing list. The larger our mailing list gets, the easier and more consistent it is for us to have lots of people joining the huddle. So we sincerely hope that you'll help us to spread the word. Maybe tell a person, if you're already on the list, forward it along. Right? If you get the huddle newsletter, forward it along to a friend or two, and encourage them to come and check it out. Just as Dave said, right? That's how this type of thing starts, and it's how it builds. And we appreciate all the effort that people make to be a part of our community, and contributing by joining as guests periodically as well. It's wonderful. So, Stacy, anything else?
Nope. We're good to go.
Good to go. All right, cool. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
See ya.